So, welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. Today's Tuesday, February the 24th, 2026. Welcome to the show. Hi, Michael.
Hey, dear heart, and I can hear you much better when you're unmuted. It's just amazing. So welcome, everybody. Delighted and honored that you're here and that we get to move forward to the next level of the conversation. You know, every time I think about the fact that we've been carrying this conversation on for 15 years and that it's gone down so many roads, and I think I hear Dusty's voice in the background. So, hey, Dusty.
Well, hello, and I'm glad to hear you two sound great today.
We're rocking along. How about you?
Well, I'm doing really well. Last time I called in, I guess a week or so ago, I said I was, I used the wrong word, but I used the word apologize for being me. I think I said something like that.
Uh-huh.
And and that was a big deal because I'd had a negative thought loop on it. So that was a process I was going through. And it was really more that I was restricting myself more than I needed to. And and I went, no, wait a minute. After the time on the Mind Shifter radio show and that night meditating, I went, okay. I was kind of at that all day trying to figure that one out. And I realized, no, it's about when did it start? Well, Michael, if anybody would know, it would be you, because it was the sepsis is where it started. That time you called and my voice.
I remember. Yeah.
Yep. I'd already been in sepsis, which is my sepsis, it was a bacterial overload, folks, from dental issues. That was something I was trying to take care of in the VA, and they dropped the ball. Anyways, there I was, and I was in major overload. And you remember when you stayed here, you said you saw that little sign that said, don't tense up, something like that?
Right.
That had been up there for almost over 2 years before you got there, 3 maybe, because almost 2 years before you called, I've been clenching my jaw uncontrollably. And I went, what the heck? And it got so my whole face would torque. And I did look pretty spastic, I'll have to say, at times. And, but that thing knocked me down. I mean, I just came so close to buying the farm on that one. And,
yep. I think I called it the right time.
And and it got worse
for everybody. There. Yeah, just for everybody who's listening, to give a piece of history to it. I had called Dusty just out of the blue to say hello, and after the conversation, I called the police on him. Actually, I knew Dusty was in trouble, and so called the police to get a wellness check on him, and he was having some significant difficulties. So glad we made that connection that day. Yeah.
Yes, and actually I appreciate that you did call them, although it was funny. There was 5 cops at the door and one little machine about the size of an Avison, and they came in, and one guy hooked me up to it, went, oh, yeah, blah, 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 and they walked out the door again. Didn't do much, but nonetheless, it alerted me that I needed to go. Between the phone call with you and them coming through the door, it alerted me I needed to go to take care of it. And so that's when it started. And I have to tell you that I am so grateful that I caught myself in these negative mind loops and then tracked it to what it was about, but still didn't know how that came about until I went to the timeline. And then I figured, oh, that's when it started. I mean, and so I'm very grateful. I'm really out of that woods, although I have to remain mindful that I don't slip into it somewhere. So I'm very grateful that I get to be, it's, it's such a relief being being who you really are more and more.
Yes.
And
I hear that.
yes. Yeah. And part of what was the driving that was in my meditations, I'm becoming more and more, I mean, I am earnestly reaching and feeling and trying to, being in my own center and revealing more of the, of that which I am to my own consciousness, shall we say.
That was
And,
a conversation on our show yesterday.
Well, and that was the game. And so all I can say, if there's anybody listening, is that, if stuff comes up, that's the time to go into it. I mean, that's the time most of us want to, well, that hurts. I don't want to go there. Well, gosh, I'm just grateful that things I finally caught that one. And and thank you.
Breathing with you.
You and who. Yeah, and thank you. And I appreciate anybody's. Susan said some nice things, and but it was about the timeline. That's what I needed, Michael, and you know that one.
Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you, and I'm glad you're back.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother, and Jeannie and all, and I wish you all wonderfulness. I'm just going to listen for a while I take care of a project here. And,
all right.
But that's all I have, unless you've got anything else you want to say on it.
No, I just appreciate your feedback, and I'm glad that we connected that day.
Yeah,
I think
me
we
too.
might not have had another conversation if you hadn't picked that one up. So,
yeah.
So I'm glad you did.
Yeah, it's possible that it could have been that way, and certainly it was good timing on your part, and just it's a beautiful
Breathing
world
with you.
when you're. Yeah, man. Breathing. I'm still having and I got my rib x-rayed yesterday just because I don't think it's going to show anything, but I think it's probably in the cartilage or somewhere, but we'll see. So,
yeah.
So anyways, God bless everybody and be well and yeehaw.
All right. Keep us posted, sir. Blessings.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, that was a good start. One of the sweet blessings of community. So appreciating everybody in this community and the space that everyone contributes to and helps to create. It's bizarre that we live in a world where a lot of people don't have any shadow of that available to them. So glad y'all are here. And who's got something on your mind? What's exciting? What's happening?
Hi.
Miss Andrea. Hey, you're a young lady.
Hi. Yeah, I've come into a really deep part of my shadow, and it's super intense. Super intense.
I hear you.
It's I can see like how I've really avoided this part, and it's really like, in a blessing way, really showing itself. Like, there's enough safety created inside and outside. I had like a few catalytic situations. I had met this guy, and we were talking for a while, and I got to see this pattern that is really complex, but essentially, what I've found out of these catalytic experiences is this really deep part of my shadow that involves a real darkness around. Oh, I'm having such a hard time putting it into words. Part of me like my ego just wants to stay numb about it. So I'm struggling to even really stay with it and access it. But um, this, I'll speak about it with this guy and my dad, but it really is my inner masculine. And it was this space where this man was, really versed in saying, reading my wounds and really saying like all the right things. And, I was able to see it quite quickly that it was back into the same dark pattern where um, there was very deep manipulation and that turned into gaslighting and lying and at such a level, a strategic level, that I'm struggling how to.
Let your breath open. You're safe. And notice you have a whole community here that's extending love in your direction and support and breath to go in and process this, really, truly process it.
Like going into this life, I've really been able to connect to that this is quite deeply my relationship with my dad, knowing that it's the karma that I came in to really face, and just how like it blew these illusions out of the water around how my dad presents as such a good guy, and comes in buying things and like this pretense of being there, but any sign of emotion or needs, um, there's a very deep darkness that comes up around, not being able to support it. And the way it gets dealt with is through, you know, manipulation and gaslighting. And I do it to myself. Like I seen how I was doing it to myself in this situation, with this
So it's a
man.
power person dynamic.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. And but it also lives in me. Like I can see how it connects to other lifetimes where I was that person doing that, and how much through my life I've fought to not be that with my kids and tried really hard to control my own behavior. But that it's been, you know, it has been inside me, and that I treat myself that way. And, it really registered like how I don't know, like how it's been this
And let your
space.
breath move. Let's just make that primary. That's what's going to clean up the unconscious dynamics that you're looking to work through. And yes, you'll feel it more intensely as you breathe. And it's safe to go there.
Just like how everyone's trying to get their needs met, but in a way that
Yeah.
isn't healthy, and how much my dad sexualized me, and, trying to get his own attachment needs met through me, and how that pattern has continued for me with men, like just believing that if I let them get their needs met that way, that somehow I'll get my needs met, and that I manipulate myself, to like try and get my needs met in these distorted ways that really actually hurt me, and they've hurt my kids, in the way that I've acted it out. But
My offering is that in most cases, especially where a young girl is sexualized by an older man, or a young boy is sexualized by an older woman, it's nothing to do with getting needs met. It's got to do with an addiction.
Okay.
And letting go of that addiction is what lets the next level of pain come up. I mean, to me, one of the greatest crimes against humanity is when an older adult sexualizes the connective needs that a child has. You know, every one of us has this need for connection, not attachment, but connection. And when that comes forward and we have someone who's addicted to whatever it is, then that if it's a sexual addiction, then the older the adult sexualizes the need for connection that the child has, and then the child set off on the same pathway. And that's a really deep power person dynamic that, you know, one of the things I'd invite you to do is dig out that power person worksheet, and this would be a powerful one to take every aspect of it and just go through every piece of it, the depth of the variety of thought disorders that go with this deep of thing that need to be uprooted and forgiven. It's just profound.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that today. Yeah, so they're really big patterns that came from both sides. And, I can really see how I was, I like that word, marinated in it, and how I have really sexualized myself, thinking like these deep beliefs that is the way to have people stay. And
Yeah.
how in my own despair for, it's not the right word, Susan actually used the perfect word last night, destitute, feeling so destitute that there's no, looking around as a kid, there's no connection, and there's no space for my feelings and needs, and how I really believed that must be true. The only thing I'm good for is my body. And if I give that up, then I can have, then I can have connection. And there's so much pain and grief around, where life went for me, in such a feeling of complete aloneness, and not even understanding what connection is, and how the only way to get that is through giving my body away. And just the pain that's, I've worked through so many layers, but it's like this whole new layer coming up of, deeply wanting connection, and still finding, like, with men, not with women, but with men,
Right.
how I still don't know how to build that connection. Like, I have some ideas, but I don't actually know. And as soon as it comes, like, I'm in this group around relationships and connection, and I keep getting paired up with the only man there, and every time we do exercises where we get into connection, I go into complete fear and freeze. And I don't even know how to be in connection with a man.
Well, and what you're doing right now is taking the biggest possible step you could do in order to arrive at that place, and that is you're telling yourself the truth. Once the truth is told, there's a powerful line that unfortunately when it went into the movie, it was changed, but in the original play, the movie was Mass Appeal. In the original play, the line was, Now that the truth has been told, there's room for real love.
Okay.
And as long as we're coming from pain, being sexualized, or being seductive, all of those things where truth isn't the foundation, then everything is false. And when the stress is up and the chips are down, the false collapses and leads to destruction. And so the fact that you're telling yourself the truth, the fact that you're being with the truth, you'll break through those layers of pain and trauma. And then your connection to your own being, our conversation yesterday was just basically the same one with Andrea, or pardon me, with Anita, about the true self. When you get connected to the true self, the self which is true, then you come forward with, and you'll know exactly where the energy is right and on track. And that's the place to enter into full, connected, intimate relationship. And you'll know when this is not where it's going, that it's fake. And it's a giant piece of work with the history in our culture of sexual abuse of men of women, women of men, fathers of daughters, mothers of sons. Until that stuff is cleared up, it's a mess. So I acknowledge you for your willingness to step into the space and clean it out. It's a trauma for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I did, when I really got to connect to these patterns, in the workshop, I did these two exercises around, um, they're called clearings, and one was with my mother and one was with my father, and it like merged into this path where I could really see myself. And so I did breathing, like I did breath work after, and was able to unnumb because I feel really numb like every time I try and sit with it. And it's like at my throat and I can feel it hurts, like it actually wants to come out, and but it feels somehow numb. So when I did the breath, there was so much that came out, and how, like, where it's stored in my body and the voices that came with it, and these very deep beliefs, that, I really believed that there's no worth outside my body and my sexuality. Without that, I'm nothing. And how, it connects to these times. Like, interestingly, this guy is from Sorrento, which is where I have these memories with my dad, but they're really foggy. And how this man coming into my life, coming from that location, even really helped bring it to the surface.
Right.
And the sickness, like the feelings that I was feeling at the time, but it's like my psyche is protecting me from remembering. And, at that time in my life, it was already really difficult. My uncle had been, sexually molesting my sister and I, and everywhere I turned, it was happening. At neighborhood kids, their stepdads, like it was everywhere. And so, like, in my brain, in my understanding, that was the only connection with men, you know, and even when it came out about my uncle, where I believe my sister told, it was such an angry situation. My family, was.
Breathe. Keep your breath moving. Remember, you want to process this with intelligence. Intelligence is introduced into physiology through the breath. So just be with you, and we'll keep breathing because you're resonating for everybody here. We'll keep breathing with you, and when you notice it stops, just pay attention to it and let the intelligence into the next level with the next breath.
yeah, like when my mom found out that my uncle was, she was screaming and yelling at me, did this happen? And I thought I was in trouble, like I had done something wrong. And because I fundamentally felt like everything about me was wrong, that's why there was no connection. And I really believed that somehow I had caused my uncle to do those things. So I lied and said nothing happened because I was so afraid that then I would be told how wrong I was. And I've been carrying that in this life, like protecting these men in my life, my dad and my uncle, and protecting them and justifying in my own mind how they're good and they're okay. Meanwhile, the things that they're doing was absolutely not okay, but I just didn't
Yeah.
know. I really thought there was something wrong with me, and how that keeps replicating in these relationships with these men. These men show up with very intense psychopathic and sociopathic behaviors, and somehow I justify it and I make it okay so that I can just be loved, or like have this illusion that somehow I have connection and people won't leave me. And just how much I've lived in functional freeze, trying to just do the right things. If I can just do the right things, then I'll have connection. But then
I was just good enough.
yeah, and then when real connection comes, it's so scary. I don't even understand it. And I feel like I just run away from it.
Mm.
You know, when this pattern showed up, I felt defeated, like, in a way of like, is this ever gonna end?
Well, I'm in full agreement with you that this pattern has gone on in our family systems, and I'm talking about all of us, for too many generations. And I'm going to just invite you to take a breath and just repeat to yourself, I'm innocent. I'm innocent because the Creator put the breath of life in me. I'm innocent. I'm innocent because the Creator put the breath of life in me. That's all you need. I'm cherished. I'm cherished just because the Creator put the breath of life in me. Not because I have a body, but because I'm created of the active presence of love.
I also really got to see this other part of this pattern that, I've been really able to develop my own spirituality and really evolve that way, and how much in ways I've used that to deflect from feeling so defective. If I can just be that evolved and lead with that. I know that's the truth of who I am, but it's the way in which I'll use it at times. That if I
Right?
can just be that and not process this by turning my back on my own shadow, that maybe somehow people will see, and it's brought me to a community of really good people here in Prince George with, very connected spiritual people, but how I also use that to deflect in times where I feel so defective that if they only knew what was really going on inside of me, that they wouldn't love me. They wouldn't let me be there. That if people really knew how fucked up I was, and I feel like a fraud, even in healing circles that I'm leading, it's like if people only really knew how fucked
Yeah.
up I am, I would be totally rejected and destitute again.
And I can just about guarantee you that if we had a system right now on this app where we could ask everybody who's ever had that thought to raise their hand, everybody would raise their hand. And I want you to just to acknowledge you and to have you acknowledge yourself for that was a powerful survival strategy. You did that work. You used it perhaps not perfectly, but it allowed you to go through what otherwise would have likely destroyed you. And so now you're at a level of strength where you can embrace that. Oh, I was using that as a survival strategy rather than integrating it fully. And now just take it to the next level of integrating it fully and let that old bullshit go about how defective you are. The Creator never made anybody defective. Have we done things that make us appear defective? Yeah, all of us. But that doesn't make us defective. So my input to you would be to pick up that codependence worksheet, that power person worksheet, and now integrate this work that you've done that you've kind of held apart from the judgments of yourself, and now bring that all together and just let yourself integrate the truth of, oh, I'm innocent, been doing my work, and I found a way to survive through some really tough stuff. And I can't imagine what a young woman must go through to be sexually abused by an adult man. I just can't fathom it. And I apologize for every woman, for every man that's ever done such a thing. It is, again, it's I think one of the deepest crimes against humanity that there is. And I apologize for every man that's ever done such a thing to you or to any woman. And join you in that breath right there, that breath, yes. Let's all just let that move out, through, and be finished with it so that the truth of your innocence can connect to the work you've done, and then take the final step that just literally blows off all the other garbage, all the generational garbage, all the childhood garbage, all of the adult garbage that was taken on through these false beliefs. And then hand it back to your generations, hand it back to your mom, to your grandmother. I just think it was so awesome. Give that gift to your daughter of that understanding. And you've done a ton of work to get to the point where you could access and acknowledge these truths. Tell yourself the truth, and now take it all to the next level.
Yeah.
So I'm with you 1,000%. I hear you 1,000%. It's bizarre that we live in a world that doesn't know how to model for us the integrity that's possible for us as human beings. It's just not in common enough experience yet.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for hearing all that.
And I can see how, just by the way your body's moving, but how deeply primal it is. And it probably didn't, the experience of this pattern didn't start with you.
Yeah.
And allowing your physiology to move in a way that just liberates your genes, your physiology, your emotions, and your mind from all of these patterns. And leaving a vacuum, leaving a space to bring your true essence, your true integritous, awesome being into your physiology fully, into this world. That's what we need, a critical mass of people who are willing to face things on that level and do that level of work.
Yeah, and with that being said, too, I really caught, like, I feel like so much of myself came into wholeness this weekend and over this last week with this reflection that I received through this man. And, like, these deep unclaimed parts, like, I really felt this magnetism to him because he was showing up and saying, like, I claim you. And I was like, whoa, this is like so next level unhealthy. And seeing my own visceral response of like being magnetized towards that, I wanted that. And so I really got to find the part of myself, well, like a part of this pattern that really wants to feel claimed by me. My shadow wants to feel claimed by me, like it wants to be brought into wholeness. And that I got to really see in this deep truth that, you know, I hold on to this story that I've been doing this work since I was 15. And, but what I recognized, I go and I dive in deep. And then I go, okay, I've done enough healing. Now I'm ready for a relationship. And I go back unconscious, replicating the same patterns. And I understand there's layers. And at the same time, there's been this space of like, okay, I've done enough. I want to close down now. And I go unconscious. And so, yes, I do acknowledge that I've been, you know, desiring to do this deep work since I was 15. And there are periods where I go unconscious again, still holding the belief that I'm doing the work when evidently I'm not. I'm denial. I'm in denial and dissociation while
That's part of the
projecting.
process.
Is it?
That's part of the process.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't just discover that you hit a piece from yourself and then, oh, now I'm finished with it. It's a process working through it. You know, I don't remember whether you were on the show last week, and this is, perfect to bring this conversation forward in the context of what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks on healing through relationships and the purpose of the commitment. And if you weren't on that show, again, I don't remember whether you were, but we covered the commitment. And so I don't remember what day that is. Jeannie can probably tell us before we're finished here. But you might want to go back and listen to that show. And the idea of the commitment is here is a personal code that would reflect the state of perfect being in the world. That's what at least that's my best effort at putting forward a personal code that would reflect that. And is there any of us that has lived up to it? Probably not. I shared last week as we was talking about it, one of the most recent pieces that I put in the commitment, because the commitment has really just been a reflection of every time I find myself falling down, what's a tool that I can put in it? What's a language tool that I can put in it to support me working through that piece of the puzzle? And one of the most recent lines that I put in is, if anything that I've committed to here sounds hollow, because I realized that, in the earlier part are these wonderful words of commitment, and we all can say them and go, yeah, that's what I want to do. But when the stress is up and the chips are down, nobody's going to do it. We're going to do it in increments. We're going to do it in pieces. We're going to discover these broken parts that when they're, resonated into activity, drag us away from our ideal and put us right back in the behaviors of the power person. So it's a process of, and just, be gentle with yourself in that process and realize that with the depth of trauma and pain that you've gone through, and when you say, you lived in a community as a kid where, stepfathers are abusing your neighbor's children and you're being abused by your uncle, and, when you realize the depth of that, you're not going to be done with it this week. And just be gentle with yourself in the process, and allow the insane parts of your mind, the unsane parts of your mind to come forward. And sometimes in stressful situations, that behavior is going to play out again. The objective is, I catch it. It's running me right now. There's nothing I can do about it. But once it's there, now I'm going to work through that piece of my puzzle and refrain from condemning myself because I still have that piece unresolved.
Right.
It's like, and go back and claim your perfection. And yep, I didn't live it here, so here's my next piece of work. And just be approving. There's a commitment that we have for the, and that's what we covered last week, to use with another person. But then there's also the commitment to myself. And this is, something that I want to use as a verbal method of treating myself. So I promise to trust myself enough to be willing to hear and speak the truth and treat myself lovingly, gently, and with respect. I will do this in my thoughts, words, and actions all the time. In every interaction, I will look for and acknowledge the highest and best in myself as I surrender to love, my true nature. Staying connected to my source, love, and nurturing that relationship is more important than any issue. Now, if that sentence makes sense to you the first time you acknowledge it, it's like, wow, yeah, that's great. Man, I'm going to do that. You're not going to do that because you have a personal code based in a lot of old trauma experiences that are going to move you in a different direction. So the idea of the commitment is, okay, so I recognize, man, I'm ready to live that. Now I'm going to have to learn through it. I'm going to have to face and forgive the parts of myself that hold these contraindicated ways of behaving, and I'm going to have to work through them. It's part of the process. So if you make those first two paragraphs of commitments, then the next step is to recognize what's going to happen. So if anything unlike love comes up, I'm going to go to that quiet place within where love dwells, breathe. I'll listen to, welcome, and accept love's guidance. I'll be teachable as I ask to be inclined toward healing and shown how to keep communication open in all relationships. I'm willing to be responsible for my own realities and learn to keep love conscious, active, and present as I heal and celebrate life. Then when you first touch into those thoughts, most everybody goes, yay, that's wonderful. Can you do it? Probably not. Can you work through the process of living up to it with yourself? Yeah, that's the idea of the tools. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we could see a defect and then just snap our fingers and, finish with that one already? Not the way it works. I've been 55 years developing this, and 55 plus. And for me, I'm real clear. I've done the deepest, most important work that I've done in just the last 2 years or so. So it's a process, and just, when you fall down, be as gentle and forgiving of those dynamics in yourself as you would like someone else to be with you. Treating yourself, using language about yourself that's loving, gentle, and respectful. Even if you're way out in the weeds in your worst behaviors. Because that's how you bring your true self. I understand that from yesterday's conversation that we had with Anita, that one of the goals was, okay, so now I'm going to learn how to love myself. We had a whole conversation around, well, actually, that's not exactly what you want to do. You want to learn to discover yourself as the presence of love and then function from that state of being. And in a world where the possibility of that is not even known, let alone probably ever been language to any of us, when you're the first, the early adopter, it's a big piece of work. And you need to take care of and cherish yourself along the way of doing that work. Because there's a self in there for all of us that's pretty bizarre. You go back to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, he says, in order for you to live, you've got to die. He's saying that old self that is a construct of the mind, of carbon-based memory, of genes, of generations, has to be dissolved and dismantled. And it can be a pretty bizarre and intense process. And just remember to keep that gentle breath moving through your physiology, because when you try to process something without breath, it's not processing, it's reinforcing. I go back as an example, and I know I've said this several times, but I think it fits here again, especially with perhaps some new folks that are on the conversation. But in Hawaii, there's a word for the white man, and the word is haole. And just to keep it short and sweet, the word haole in essence means grease without breath. That when the Hawaiians met, they connected forehead to forehead, aloha to aloha, rakma to rakma, and they breathed together, and they breathed each other's nasal air. The white man came along and stuck his hand out to check for weapons, and he garnered the name haole, greets without breath. One who greets without breath greets without intelligence. One who processes without breath processes without intelligence. It is not processing at all. It's just reinforcing of the energy dynamics that are unconscious. And it's just a reminder that we have to give ourselves over and over and over again until we are restored to that original breath that was literally designed by the Creator for us as humans.
So part of what I'm getting from what you're saying is when my body is full of sensations as I keep processing this and I feel like I'm numb, just keep breathing gently and somehow it's gonna just keep coming.
Yes, if you keep applying the breath there, the transforming power, when you get the breath to a level where it overcomes the level of physiological resistance, that's when it breaks down the incoherent energies in tissue, in genes, in generations. It's that activation of the breath and keeping the breath moving. And if you think about, let's take an abusive situation that's happened maybe once or twice or 2,000 times in one's life. How much energy went into locking that down and not feeling it? And it's going to take a similar amount of breath to unlock it, allow it to come forward, and dissolve it, forgive it, remove it from the structure.
Okay.
And if it's locking tissue down, so there's dysfunction in tissue, then it's going to take even a deeper level to undo the dysfunction on a tissue level. So willingness, breath, and when you do breath work on yourself, the fact that in the intensive that you did, we did the energy field work. There's a certain amount of that energy field work you can do on yourself. So if you find yourself alone and needing to process, do that alignment work. Alignment is a key to how the vitality gets into the structure. Energetically, it's like, I have a television set here and I plug it in, and when it's plugged in, it's powered, but there's no picture. The signal has to come into the TV. If I don't have the signal, I don't have the power, I'm not watching TV. If I don't have the alignment, I don't have the power supply to process. So the alignment is key there. And then the breath would be comparable to the signal coming into the television. I want to keep a signal connected to love, keep the breath at that level that it brings transformation into my physiology. And then, of course, willingness is what softens things to allow the energy to move at an amplified level. Thank you, Anita. And of course, you are fortunate to have the three of you there that all know the energy field work, and take time once a week and do an exchange with each other, and do the energy field work and breathe each other. It's such an awesome gift to give someone, an awesome gift to receive.
Okay, thank you for your support. That really helps, because I was afraid that this numbness that keeps coming up, I'm wanting to stay conscious through this, and I know it's come up so many times, and I've turned my back on it because I just didn't really know how to face it, and I know that I feel that pattern being there, and I want to step out of that pattern. Yeah. Bye, Anita. I see she's just left a message. She has to leave. But thank you for your support.
Sending blessings, Anita. And I want to acknowledge you for, in the time that you've been around this work, that I've known you, even in the face of some pretty dastardly trauma, you keep coming forward. You keep coming forward, reaching for the next level of integrity, and that's monumental. So I acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
And I join you in the next level, being able to dissolve. Notice where the tightness is in physiology when this comes up. Notice that the tightness wants to lock breath out of the tissue. And that's where, as you breathe, soften and let the breath into the tissue. This is how what was called in the ancient teachings the veil of the temple is rent in twain. It wasn't about a purple curtain in a church. It's this barrier of resistance that locks the healing intelligence and presence of breath out of tissue. It's physiological. So softening physiology with that next breath and going into that next level. And yes, when you do that, you're going to find the next level of what you haven't resolved. And that's part of the process. So breathing with you fully, freely, and allowing some joy to come in with that breath. I acknowledge your intelligence, your willingness, and the work you've done. You know, when I watched you in the intensive, and some of the stuff you came up with was pretty powerful, pretty profound.
Thank
So
you.
when a piece of you haven't worked through yet surfaces, I invite you to acknowledge yourself for the work you have done. Take it into a deeper level of making it yours.
Thank you again.
You are welcome and deserving. Any other thoughts or questions at this point?
No, I feel complete. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone, for holding this space.
All right, well, seeing as how we're down to just a couple of minutes, what I'm going to do is invite everybody to tap into that breath that we've been talking about and just allow yourself to notice anywhere that there's any tension in your form that's holding breath out of that part of your form. Might be in your feet, your calves, thighs, your buttocks, your back, your shoulders, your neck, your jaw. If you notice anywhere that that's happening, allow yourself to just take a deep, connected breath and just that soften and let that breath enter into the next level of your tissue structure. The breath restores. The life-enhancing breath of Rukudakucha, the sacred breath of the eternal forces, was gifted to you with your first inspiration, your first breath. Allow yourself to tap deeply into that in your physiology. What this work is about is correcting everything in physiology that's been thrown out. Every cell in your structure is designed to be embraced in, fueled by the active presence of love. Go to the Aramaic word prayer, and it speaks of aligning yourself to capture that breath and the presence of love that it delivers into your structure. That's what takes you into the kingdom of expansion. It's letting that flow into your physiology. You were given this sacred breath, in Aramaic called Rukudakucha. It is a specific frequency of the eternal forces that's designed to animate your human physiology. And all we need to do is let it in. And what results is a state of being that expands within you as you let loose the blockages. If there are any kinks in the energy flow, just allow the breath to come fully in, to soften and open those, untying, releasing the knots of hostility, fear, self-judgment, grief, and loss. Until your physiology fully aligns with its original purpose, which is that of being able to capture the active presence of love in which you live, move, and have your being, and reflect it into the world. And joining you in that. Thanks for being with us. Have a blessed rest of your day.